We're here today at the 29th virtual meeting of the practice group. I want to welcome you all to the meeting today. We are going to get going with our topic here in just a minute, but first we've got a few discussion items. I'm joined today by the co-leader of the group and our presenter, Bob Wygant.
Hello, everyone.
And hello, Bob, and also Rob Holson's on the line. Rob's our facilitator with CSI.
Hello, everyone.
I think you were all informed that you're in listen-only mode, so that means that we can talk, and you have to listen to us, and you can't talk unless you raise your hand, but we welcome you to do that and join the conversation. You can also communicate with us by using the question function within GoToWebinar, and we will either respond to those questions directly or else we'll speak them out for you, but we encourage the discussion. So we're going to have a presentation today on work that Bob's doing with ARCAT on content management and a new tool that he's developed that works with content. So we have been on this theme for the last several meetings, actually, where we've been looking at what's available out there as far as tools and resources for building product information. Last month we had a presentation from the Smart BIM library by Andrew Arnold, and the month before that we had Autodesk Seek give us a presentation on their system and what it does and how it works. We're going to take a different view of that today, and we'll be getting into that. But first, we wanted to just talk a little bit about, or at least throw open the idea for you to think about, and we want to come back to this at the end for some discussion about some new blood for the practice group. Bob's been doing this, how long now, Bob? We're saying almost 3 years, huh?
Yeah, what did you say? This is the 29th virtual meeting? Yeah, so we're looking at you know, 2 years, 5 months, and still going strong. But you know, just to sort of finish what Roger was saying, you know, new blood is always important to grow an organization. You know, it's just that we can get, you know, somebody else who can come in maybe with some new ideas, maybe with some new people that they see as presenters, maybe looking at it from a contractor's view, maybe looking at it from different perspectives. And, you know, it will also allow me to kind of pursue a couple of things that I've been looking into doing. I'm getting ready to start writing another book, which is going to take up a considerable amount of my time. And you know, I'm going to do this as long as less as necessary until we can find somebody to step in. But you know, I'm emphasizing that I think new blood is going to help everybody. So anybody who has any interest in leading the group, we are all ears. So that's, you know, where that is. And you know, sort of to finish out this slide. You know, I have about 21 slides in my presentation today. It may or may not take the whole time. I mean, I can get up on a soapbox and talk for hours about this stuff. But you know, being the leader and also presenting, it's sort of it's almost like a conflict. But I don't want to monopolize the time. I'd also like to talk about what you guys are interested in seeing as far as the next meeting topics. I know a big one that has come up is, let's see an omni-class demonstration. You know, I would love to see that, and I would love to, you know, possibly put it together. But again, I don't want to monopolize all of the time here, being the you know, convener of the group as well. So you know, we've been talking about product content libraries over the last few months, and we're just sort of rounding it out with this one. This is the last one we're going to really look at, and we want to think about, you know, what kind of tools are out there. Omni-class, and an update on what's happening with SPI, or the Specifiers Property Information Exchange. So we have a handful of ideas, but we're constantly looking for a few more ideas. That way we can sort of get our meetings scheduled several months out in advance in order to maybe gain a little bit more interest so people can schedule around it and get into the meetings, you know, as they see fit.
Yeah, we've been struggling a little bit with our scheduling, so that might help us. I was going to also get another topic that I didn't put on the list, but I just had some thoughts about. We could have an update on IFD and application to product libraries, because we just actually came from IFD meeting in Montreal, and we have some new work that's going on in Europe on how to apply IFD to the structuring of product library content. So that might be a way to be something to think about, it kind of taking the work we've done with commercial libraries and seeing how the standards might help to make those work in a different, maybe better way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's another good topic that we can bring into the mix. But you know, this is everybody's group, not just mine, not just Roger's, not just CSI's. This is here for everybody. So you know, we want to hear from you guys what you want to hear about, and you know, sort of seek out presenters for different topics that would be relevant.
Absolutely, that'd be great to get that. That's always been the vision, and we've been able to do a good job of, I think, bringing in some interesting outside speakers that we've pretty much invited, and you've done a lot of presentations, Bob, so I think it would be nice to try to have somebody volunteer from the group and just help share with us what you're working on, because that's part of the idea here. It's really not that bad. The presentation, I mean. Making a presentation. So, yeah, at any rate, maybe we'll come back to that after we've gone through what you were planning to talk to us about today.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I mean, with that, I mean, I'm ready to start rolling on the slides.
Okay, let's see. I need to make you presenter, change presenter, Robert Wygand. There we go.
And can everybody see my screen okay? It's not cut off or anything?
It looks good on my screen, Bob. It looks good.
Okay. Well, you know, first and foremost, thank you everybody for taking time out on this Friday just before Memorial Day, when you're all trying to scramble to get out of the office and beat traffic home. You know, for some of you, I'm hoping that that this is the last thing that you're going to be doing today, and you'll be able to take off right after it. I know that that's what I'm planning on doing. So what I wanted to talk about today, you know, as we had mentioned, we had looked at what Autodesk Seek was doing, what Reed has been, or excuse me, what Smart BIM has been doing, and ARCAT is another big player in the BIM content provision market. As some of you may or may not know, I'm the developer and manager of ARCAT's BIM library. I built it from its infancy and have made it what it is today. You know, at this point, there's you know, over 7,000 different components and over 20,000 assemblies in the library, including everything from architectural, structural, and MEP components, ready to be used for in Revit. We developed everything in 2009. That way, more people can use it. But for those who may not know, who is ARCAT? Well, ARCAT is an online specifications and product information library that a lot of manufacturers, several hundred, rely on to bring their products in front of audiences that they may not normally be able to get in front of. Somebody out there, and if so, can you please mute? So essentially what they are is, they're, first and foremost, they're really an AEC toolbox. So for architects, engineers, contractors, consultants, they offer a series of tools that they can use to make their job a little bit easier. The BIM components has been the latest and greatest. but they really started as a specification provider, then moved into CAD. They've been offering a series of spec wizards, and I'm going to show you a new one that's on the forefront now, which is a wall wizard for BIM. And they are able to get in front of different people that a manufacturer may not be able to approach, get their product info so that it can be downloaded from a single point. And that brings it to really what they're offering is intelligent access to product data. They're creating basically a portal where on a Friday afternoon when you're 2 hours from deadline and you need information from 6 different manufacturers, you can go to a single location to research the product and download what you need, whether it's a specification or a series of BIM components, that last shop drawing that you need to drop into a product, or just to confirm that the product is what is appropriate. So it creates a single point of reference for all of this information. And a lot of manufacturers have actually, relied on ARCAT and sort of referred to them as their spec czar, and where they're not really proficient in the development of specs or how to manage architectural information. So they rely on them to take care of all of that for them. And moving right into it, sort of what is content? Content is sort of a subjective term depending on what industry you're in. As far as a web developer is concerned, any piece of information that's going on a site is content. But when you talk about BIM and you talk about the construction industry, the design and construction industries, content really is the information about the products. And in terms of BIM, it's a couple of different things. First, it's graphic representation of a component, whether it's a window or a door or gypsum or paint, whatever it is. It's a graphic representation of it. So it shows the different finishes, it shows the different options. But also equally important is it's the information necessary to design, to build, and to manage the project. So if you have, requirements for your windows that need to, it needs to meet egress code, and it needs to have a specific air, water, and structural value because it's going to be installed in Dade County, Florida. Having all that information at a single point allows the content to be more robust and create that single intelligent access from a model directly to a manufacturer. So it also provides the ability to tack into it supplemental data, like linking directly to a specification, adding in test data, and installation, operations, and maintenance information. Just excuse me for 1 second, and just want to open up the questions pane. I do see that there's a couple.
Bob, are we looking at this window or this graphic on the right? Is that out of the ARCAT library?
No, this is sort of a developmental piece. Basically, I'm working on taking the information that's contained within a model and being able to create a sort of a submittal sheet for it. It's something that I'm playing with, with another tool that I'm going to talk about a little bit at the end. But this isn't, this shows the information. If you see these headers here are actually right out of Revit. I just kind of dragged and dropped them in. Creates sort of a nice showpiece to show all the pieces of information that apply to content. And just to answer a quick question as we're here, there's what's the average file size of a component in the ARCAT content library? Well, that really is dependent on the type of component. The sweet spot for content is anywhere between 400 and 400K and 1.2 meg, depending on what the detail level is on the component, whether it's used as something that's only used once or if it's used all over a project. For instance, a window is something that's used all over the place, and you're going to have a lot of them. So you want to keep the file sizes as small as possible. But something like a chandelier is a very ornate object. It's probably only going to be used once. So it's okay for those to be slightly larger and more detailed. It has to do with how the component is, what the component is, why it's selected. But we try to keep it on average somewhere between 6 and 800K for the typical component. And you know, why does ARCAT do what they do, and why does Sumex Design do what we do? You know, content is, yeah, sure, it's a great way to make money, but it also it's critical in improving the overall design and construction market. Collaboration is critical within projects, and you know, with the integrated project delivery, you know, coming to the forefront, it becomes evident that the more collaboration and the tighter knit the design and construction and ownership teams are, the more quickly and the more accurately a project can be built. So if you can tie all of the information together so that everybody can work together in a nice, neat team, everybody seems to work. Everybody seems to streamline all of their process. So you know, the other part of it is being able to promote intelligent access, being able to allow people to go to a single point and get all of the information that they need. So it's not just going to the ARCAT library, it's clicking on the model, it's clicking on a component in a model and being able to get to these different locations. And having the information in a library structure, you know, it provides access to multiple products from the same location with the assurance that links are never going to go dead and that the information is always current. You know, another aspect is a uniform appearance and level of information. All of the components that have been developed for ARCAT all have the same basic level of detail, same basic level of information, and they're uniform in appearance. And what that does is, just like with specifications, you know, somebody might be, you know, one manufacturer might be using one font, and another manufacturer might be using another font and another, you know, point size. And you know, when you try to take all of these documents and put together a project manual, it's a lot of additional effort in order to streamline and make that manual look, you know, professional. Where when all the components come from a single library, you have a consistent level of information and level of detail. And again, it also provides a single point of reference for all of the related documents associated with a project, whether it's the BIM, the specifications, additional CAD details, or, you know, green building information. So how do we do it? You know, how does ARCAT go about developing content that is appropriate for architects? Because we're developing these, you know, at the behest of a manufacturer, but we're developing for the needs of the architect and the engineer and the contractor. Because in a lot of cases, manufacturers may or may not know what they want, and may or may not know what they want. So we're in a position to really show them, or to really assist them in making the decisions of what is necessary in terms of their BIM. You know, that's making sure it's an appropriate detail level that's homogenized and harmonized with our library. Basically creating a series of attributes and a standardized series of attributes per category. And you know, we develop all of the components using Revit architecture, structure, and MEP. And we use the 2009 platform at this point. You know, because, you know, we constantly look at what's happening in the technology, and I found that there's no compelling reason to switch up Constellations up to 2011 or 2012 just yet. Yes.
Sorry, I thought maybe you were taking a pause there, but I didn't mean, sorry to interrupt, but I was trying to just ask the question about the attributes and Revit and how those, if you're making this content such that the data can be used in like some of the analysis programs that are out there. Somebody was asking about some of the DOE energy analysis programs and, you know, maybe others. Is that feasible based on the way you're building this?
Well, yeah, I mean, basically what that comes down to is, as long as the information is done using shared parameters, you know, it's schedulable and it can be exported. It can be exported through ODBC, and you can get the information out of the model. So everything that's a critical aspect that might end up in a schedule or might end up being used for analysis, we create a shared parameter so that it can be further analyzed by third-party software. And then there was a second question that came in. Is the additional information available within the Revit model or hyperlink? And the answer is both. We have sort of a standard strategy where if the information is necessary for searching or analysis within the project, we embed it in. But if it's the type of information that's really secondary research type of information, we create a series of hyperlinks back to it. So if you have test data well, let's take a window for instance. You have U factor, solar heat gain, visible light transmittance, air, water, structural values. Those type of values are going to be added into the model because somebody's likely going to be searching for a window based on one or more of those attributes. Whereas something like installation instructions, it's more than just a value. So we would link back to a location where the installation instructions for that window could be found. Or if there's a Dade County NOA that's associated with it, we link back to it so somebody can download the affirmation that it meets code. And then the other aspect of what we do is standardization, which is consistency, and I call that the fifth C in terms of CSI. There's no single standard that exists in BIM today. It's really the Wild West. It has been for years, and nothing really has come up just yet. So there's a couple of options here. I mean, right now there's unique standards that are being developed by Office. The problem with that is that really things become non-shareable. Unless everybody's using the same shared parameter files and the same source documents. Nobody can schedule out information, and it becomes very difficult to share. And then the second option is developing an industry-accepted standard. And CSI is working on that through OmniClass. I mean, I'm on the OmniClass Table 49 Development Committee to try to create a standard taxonomy for attributes. I have a shared parameter file that works in Revit that is a starting point that I make available to anybody for free. It's in a beta version now, but I'm hoping to have a final release of it available for anybody to download as their own shared parameter file within a few months. So I mean, ARCAT, partnered with Sumex Design, has developed this internal standard where every single one of the components that we've created has been created using this same shared parameter file. And it allows all of the components to schedule appropriately. So whether you're using 9 different manufacturers' doors, they all show up in the same column in a schedule in terms of the U factor and the solar heat gain and all the performance values associated with it. So they all have the same parameters and the same naming convention throughout. It makes consistency and figuring out what is what a little bit easier on everybody. And as I said, it unifies the schedules and the data exports because there's fewer, you don't have U dash factor and U factor, which would show up twice in the schedule. And, there's over 7,000 objects and growing and 20,000 plus assemblies that are growing as well. Anybody who's interested in the shared parameter file afterwards, you're free to email me. I'm happy to send it to anybody. But moving on, the idea of what we do is to put content in context, and BIM is not just an object. It's not just an object. It's not just a blob that somebody's dropping into a project. It's a digital representation of somebody's sold component or building material, and there's 3 aspects to BIM content. There's the first layer, which is materials, and that's sort of the binary layer of BIM. And then there's assemblies, which are walls, floors, ceilings, and roofs. And then there are the objects, which are the standalone widgets and components and doors, windows, doodads that people are to the project. And then there's a fourth. It's sort of an extension of objects, which are constellations, and that's a series of grouped objects that work together in a single element. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But materials, they convey specific properties and specific finishes. Assemblies, the assemblies are what take those materials and they put them into context. Now, if a company makes drywall, the architect, in order to use that drywall, is going to need to have it as a part of an assembly. They're not actually placing drywall, one panel at a time throughout a project. So the idea is to create a series of pre-configured assemblies for that manufacturer, so they have these as specified components alongside their drywall, and that really minimizes the effort required to use their BIM components. So, a little bit about materials is, they can be very specific. They have precise finishes and textures. They convey the differences in the different properties. Performance properties. What type of brick is this? Is this an FBA, FBS, FBX, HBS? What type of brick is it, and what are the physical properties around it?
Bob, how do you guys decide what materials are in there? Is this just based on which manufacturers are going to come looking to get something into the library?
Well, when you say manufacturers reach out to ARCAT and we develop a BIM program for them. So if a manufacturer is interested in having their components developed, we do it for them. They don't, we don't necessarily take their models and just throw them up on the ARCAT site. In most cases, I create them from scratch. And I've done it for over 350 manufacturers, where I've taken their website, their source documents, their binders, and gone through all their information and developed a series of models that represent their products appropriately. So in terms of materials, you want to add the performance information about what it is, and then also it's important to be able to convey the application and coverage information. So the brick, for instance, has a face value, and there's a certain number of brick per square foot. Adding that information allows somebody to get a basic brick unit count on a given project. It's not going to be exact, but it's going to be pretty darn close. And the same thing if you have adhesives or square footage of an air barrier. All these components, which may not seem like they're very appropriate in terms of BIM, are actually more appropriate than most people think. Now, there's two types of appearance when you're dealing with BIM. You have a model appearance and you have a render appearance. The model is kind of what I refer to as the Crayola. It's it's very simple color and a hatch pattern on it to give a basic idea of what something looks like. And the image on the left-hand side really conveys that. And then the render is the photorealistic on the right, where you have an actual texture that's assigned to it. And because you may have hundreds or even thousands of these materials, what we do is we create a series of sample chips so that somebody can actually grab a single material and drag and drop it into their project very quickly and easily. And one quick question here. Well, as I'm answering that, this is something to look at. This is sort of the difference between the two different, the Crayola view and the rendered view. A couple of questions while we're looking at that is, if a component is not available in ARCAT, can design professionals request contact? Yeah, there's actually on the ARCAT site there's a little request page where you can a request. It's not for manufacturer specific stuff, but if you're looking for a generic version of something, we can certainly assist in developing that and having it up on the library for you. And another question is, if there's an enclosure wall metal panel over a weather barrier over gypsum sheathing, are there 1,000 assemblies because there are 10 metal panel manufacturers and 10 weather barriers and 10 gypsum sheathing manufacturers? Okay, well, what we do is, for a given manufacturer, we've solved this problem with a tool that I'm going to show you towards the end. But what we, in the meantime, what we do is we create the assemblies for a given manufacturer. And when we do that, we create first their materials and then a series of assemblies. And in terms of this assembly that we're talking about here, with a weather barrier and gyp sheathing and a metal wall panel, let's just say that it's the weather barrier company that is having their BIM developed. What we'll do is we'll make all of their weather barriers in assemblies, in multiple assemblies, say there's 10 weather barriers. We'll create each one of those in, say, maybe 120 different basic wall configurations with a 2x4 with OSB, 2x4 with plywood, 2x4 with gyp sheathing, and just go through the list of all of these possible combinations and get those out there so an architect can quickly find what they're looking for. Now, those related products are actually listed, quote, as specified. So they can actually go out and find a sheathing manufacturer and drag and drop their materials and switch them out. It allows a manufacturer of a specific product to get their product into context without having to make thousands of combinations. And to further that, what we've done is created a wall wizard tool that allows multiple manufacturers to be specified at the same time. So this is a little bit about assemblies. What it does is it puts the materials into context. So you're looking at an image of a series of manufacturers and their products within a single assembly, and that it minimizes the effort required to use BIM when you're dealing with building materials rather than building products. And having these warehouses of assemblies allows for easy searching within Revit. So if you are looking for an air barrier with a specific perm rating, or if you're looking for a metal stud with a specific mill thickness or a specific KSI, or a specific anchor, there's a series of attributes in there that you can actually search, sort, and filter through to find what you're looking for, and then grab it. And then again, just as with the assembly or with the materials, the assemblies have these sample chips that allow you to transfer one assembly instead of having to transfer them all using transfer project standards inside of Revit. And then there's the one that everybody seems to equate content with, and that's objects. Objects are really the most commonly understood type of content. It's the windows, the doors, the lifts, the site furnishings, all of these components. They're these standalone items that are dragged and dropped into a project and really don't need components in order to do what they're designed to do. Most important aspect of objects is to convey the what and the why. What is this component and why is it selected? Why are you going to use one type of window over another? Why are you going to use one type of passenger lift over another? So it's going to have the performance information that helps make the determination of which product was selected. But at the same time, it allows you to analyze the project based on a whole, not a sum of its parts. So you have all of that information can be fed back into things like ResCheck and ComCheck and energy code modeling, so that you can think about how much open space is there in a wall. Is it 20%? Is it 10%? And be able to make calculations. And then downstream, one thing that I'm starting to work on right now is a lot of operations and maintenance stuff, where this information and these components really can assist the facilities manager in doing what they need to do. You can take all of this information and dump it out to a facilities management database and have it as, first and foremost, a digital owner's manual, and going forward, a benchmark for the different models or for the different products that are in the project. And then a little bit about Constellations. This is sort of a new thing that I'm working on. And basically, it's a series of single components that have swappable embedded components. So if you think about a door is actually more than just a single thing, and it may come from multiple manufacturers. So a door, it has a frame, it has a leaf, hardware, accessories. And the hardware and accessories may make up 7, 8, 10 components. Being able to create a single door, which I'll show you on the next slide, that has all of those, and also at the same time gives you the ability to keep your file size around 600K is a tremendous benefit. You can do the same thing with cabinets, with windows, with light fixtures, and there's you can see that there's embedded components that can be swapped out, and more of it is more informational for downstream than it is for anything else. But at the same time, it makes the models streamlined and more effective. So here's a view of a constellation for a door that I created. And what you're seeing here is the inside and outside. And actually, each one of these components is its own standalone family or standalone object. And you can swap out which handle you want, and which slab that you want, and which closer you want, which frame, which hinges, which weather strip, through a series of drop-downs. These are all lines that allow you to, from a series of drop-downs, select what my interior and exterior thing are going to be. What is the slab? What type of closer is being used here? And be able to just quickly and easily swap them out. And it allows you to go to 4 different manufacturers of closers and be able to drag and drop them into the project very quickly and easily. Another item that
Bob, can you just comment on, Bob?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you comment on how those constellations are different from assemblies? Because I mean, at some level it's an assembly, but I guess because you're swapping components, is that why you're calling it something other than an assembly?
Well, yeah, okay. An assembly refers to a series of components that work in layers, like a wall, a floor, a ceiling, or a roof. The sheathing is a layer, and the air barrier is a layer, and the siding is a layer. Whereas a constellation is really more a series of objects, like a door slab and a frame and a door handle and a closer and an exit device and a weather strip. All of these components work together in, you could call it an assembly, but for practical intents and purposes, I used the term constellation. I actually used it in my book because if you think about stars, each star is its own galaxy, but working together they create this single constellation. So each component is of its own merits, and then together they create something larger, and that's where the term constellation came from.
So you've coined that term.
Yeah.
For use here, and I guess in some way these are assemblies that are made up of fixed components, because the wall assembly, you're building it so that it's completely scalable, every piece of it, but these assemblies, the door closer is the door closer, the door handle is the door handle.
Well, right. I mean, but some of them are dynamic as well, like the leaf of the door. I mean, that might be 2 foot, 2.4, 2.6, 3.0.
But it's a fixed dimension. It's not.
Well, no. If you change the dimension of the overall door, it's going to change the dimension of the leaf itself.
No, I know, but it only comes in certain dimensions. It's not. You can't put in 2 feet 4 3/4 inches because nobody makes one of that size.
Well, right. So. I mean, we make it so that you have a series of types that are created so that somebody can assign specific sizes. But yeah, it's we fix it so we lock it down so that you have control over the things that you should have control over, and you don't have control over the things that you shouldn't. Unfortunately, being architectural software, it's that easy. So, certain things that somebody might want to try to modify, if they want to make the door hardware in green, but nobody makes it in green, they're still going to be able to do it. That's just a function of the software. Then another development piece that I'm working on is called the spec attic, and that brings non-graphic information into the model by using a very small graphic component, this little spec attic volume, as I call it. It's a piece of it's a Revit family that allows you to embed information about different aspects of a project that may or may not be relevant graphically. Very aggregate components. Nobody's going to place every fastener, and nobody's going to draw every bead of ceiling. So in lieu of that, there's an opportunity to embed all the information about that sealant in this spec attic volume and place it in an out-of-the-way location in a project so that it shows up in the database, it shows up in the project, but it doesn't inhibit you from doing anything in the model itself. And as I was developing this, I had actually spoken with an architect in Cambridge, Mass, who is doing something very similar, and they call it gum under the table. And they what they do is they have a table that they use in their project, and there's these little coin-sized pieces of graphics that they stick on the underside of that table to embed pieces of information. So, I think the concept is there. It's just figuring out how best to implement it into a given project. And then, it's also, it's an excellent opportunity to embed Division 1 information. I mean, there's question as to whether that's really relevant within a BIM, but if you can house all the information in a single database, there may be some opportunities for further leveraging the information. So about product knowledge, just sort of thinking about BIM. BIM is not just graphics. It is graphics, but it's not just graphics. It's a digital representation of a given product. So what is the product? Why is it used? How is it selected? How is it specified and installed? And also, it's not just data. So, there's that delicate balance. It has to have an appropriate appearance that's not too light and not too heavy. It needs to be able to convey the available options, the materials and finishes that are available, and the render-ready models where they're appropriate. In instances like a chandelier or something that's really selected and is going to be at the forefront of a project, you may want to consider making that render-ready. And the question was, how much file size does the spec attic add to, or how much file size does the spec attic add to a file? And the spec attic volume is about 230 or 260K. And then when you start adding a lot of information, it goes up to maybe 310. So it's not a real big, a big use of file size, and it's a very effective way to do it. In addition, you can also make types of the spec attic so that you could have one piece of graphics that will represent 100 different sections. And then in spec attic, is there an ability to cross-compare specified products against substitutions? Absolutely, because if you have the same attributes as you would have in the graphics themselves, you could use those for substitutions, where you have a substitution volume for doors, and you make that spec attic volume a family type door, and then add all the information about a manufacturer's door, drag and drop it into the project, and it shows up within the schedule, so you can actually cross-reference and do an apples-to-apples comparison. And then a little something on OmniClass. OmniClass uses master format and uniformat mainly because we're still using the 2009 library. We haven't implemented Table 23 yet, but we are in position to do it as soon as we decide to flip the switch to a newer version. It's going to be implemented. Autodesk didn't implement Table 23 until 2010 or 2011. I can't remember which one it was, but and at the same time, as I had mentioned, I'm working on a draft shared parameter file for Table 49 properties. It's a little problematic because it's about 1,000 parameters, and you can only have one level of organization in a shared parameter file, so it can get a little cumbersome. But I'm working on that and trying to develop a little API application that might streamline that process. And then a bit about new development. This is getting into the things that a little bit that we talked about and a little bit further that we're going to talk about. The first thought is that BIM is an evolution, not a revolution. It's something that it's constantly changing, especially now. It's in its infancy, so it's really, or I should say, it's in its toddler years. So it's really growing. It's starting to run fast and get better at everything that it does. So it's constant updates to the library. When we see technology changes, we change the library accordingly. And then with that, we're developing new tools. One is the ARCAT Wall Wizard, which I'm going to show you in a few slides. The Sumex Data Link, which is a developmental piece, which is sort of a cloud-based piece. And the Constellation families, the spec attic, and a parameter manager that I'm also working on. And then, the shared parameter files like Table 49 as well. So the Wall Wizard. Well, before I get into this, let me just see whose set of spec numbers and titles are using ARCOM because they were first, or BSD because they are now owned by CSI. Neither. Well, we're using master format, and master format isn't owned by anyone. Master format is really an open format that is designed for everybody to use. It's a standardized set of numbers. So We're not using ARCOM's numbers. We're not using BSD's numbers. We're using CSI's numbers.
They both use master format,
Right.
and they may make a few variations on it, but essentially they use it at least at the higher levels exactly as it's published.
Right. So the wall wizard allows an architect to specify or to BIM multiple manufacturers in a single wall assembly. It allows you to embed material. It automatically embeds the appropriate material data, performance, and usage information for each given manufacturer into a single wall assembly. And then you can just drag and drop the material right into Revit. It happens instantaneously. We developed a plugin that works right in Revit that allows you to, select a wall, as you see here in blue, and click the System Wizard, and then it opens up an interface inside of Revit, so you can configure the wall 6 ways to Sunday, based on all the manufacturers that have materials available to be used in walls. In addition, there's a search capability, so just as there has been a search box into Seek in Revit, now there's a BIM search button that allows you to click BIM search, type in doors, and it'll go out to the BIM library and find all of the doors that are available, or windows, or crystalline waterproofing, whatever it is. So a little bit on the Spec Wizard interface, or excuse me, the Wall Wizard interface. It's very simple, it's elegant, and it allows people to drag and drop layers from into the project, and then select the manufacturers that are going to be used. They can add, even if there's no manufacturer in a given category, they can still use a generic version of it. That way, they at least have something to use and make decisions based on what they're planning on using anyway. So we've broken everything out into a series of categories, anchors, different barriers, air and water barriers, brick, cladding, CMU, coatings, gypsum, insulation, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a matter of just dragging and dropping layers. Whoops. Dragging and dropping layers into the wall and configuring it based on the different attributes. So, in terms of this insulation that we're looking at here, you can pick which manufacturer you want, Knauf insulation with a craft face and an R value of this, and then it adds automatically all the assisted or additional information about those products into the project itself, and then it's a single submit wall to Revit, and it automatically updates the wall that you had highlighted with the configured wall. And that is, that's the basics of the Wall Wizard. It's it's really the first shot out in terms of creating a series of API tools that assist, different product categories. We started with walls because one of the larger pain points with Revit users is being able to create wall assemblies quickly, and also at the same time have manufacturer data in it, because it's a lot of effort. If you were to create this wall, creating this wall in the Wall Wizard takes maybe a minute, and doing it manually may take 15 minutes. Now, for one wall, that's one thing, but when you have to do it over and over and over again and have to make minor changes to it, it's much quicker to do it this way and also be able to convey multiple manufacturers in your project. And then the last thing that I just wanted to touch on very quickly was something that I'm working on as a tool, and that's the Sumex Data Link. It's a cloud-based BIM server that allows you to manage and modify BIM information remotely. Essentially, what somebody will be able to do is synchronize their project with a server and allow individuals that are not proficient in who are not proficient in Revit software to be able to manage and manipulate the information without errors. There's a series of checks and balances that allow you to modify things and not modify other things based on what Revit will allow and what they won't allow. And then, it basically, functionally, it allows controlled access by specifiers and contractors. So they can they can go in and see the information and potentially modify information. If they want to change a door to an oak door, they can do that. If they want to change it from an oak door to a door with you know, a steel frame, they can make those types of decisions very quickly and easily. So that we're coming up on the end, and it's probably good timing. So for more information on all of this, you can go to the ARCAT website. It's www.arcat.com. You know, BIM, spec wizard, CAD, product research, and sustainability information. You can also go to my website at sumexdesign.com, and I have a book on how to develop BIM content, how to, you know, BIM content development, standard strategies, and best practices, which is available at the CSI bookstore. It's available through Amazon on the Wiley Press website, and it's not a how-to for Revit. It's a how to think about BIM content. I don't think I used the word Revit in the book once, so it's not really. It's a BIM neutral book on how to really think about content. So that's my shameless plug, and with that, that is the end of what I had. Just want to take a look at some tail end questions to see. It looks like everything has been answered, but yes, the presentation will be available through the practice group website. So with that, if anybody has any additional questions, I'm happy to field them. Anyone? No? Okay. Well, with that, you know, what I'd like to do for the next few minutes would be to talk about some topics. I mean, if anybody, you know, is interested in raising their hand or wants to talk about, some different ideas for sessions coming up in the coming months, we are all ears.
Yeah, we've kind of had this theme of product libraries, and I think we've done what we set out to do by looking at some of the options out there. So, and before that, we looked at some of the spec tools and the model tools that were available.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Rob, Beth Stroshane, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, is interested in what it takes to join the leadership. So if you could send her an email with some info. If you want to add my contact information, I can reach out to her as well.
Yeah, I'll be pleased to do that. Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, and the Wall Wizard plugin you can download right from the ARCAT website. It's right on the front page. There's in the upper right-hand corner, there's a ARCAT plugin. They have a version for 2009, 2010, and 2011. So, well, with that, I would not. What are oh, that's actually a good one. What are practitioners actually doing? And
that's just exactly what we were hoping for somebody to present who is a practitioner.
And you know, and it just so happens that the person that's interested in joining leadership is the one who brought that up. Isn't that fortuitous timing? So yeah, that's definitely on topic. And if you do decide to take over leadership, well, that's your call to make. So we
whether Beth does that or someone else, would be really interesting to hear from any of the members that are using some of these services what they're doing. And it doesn't have to be a long, full-hour presentation. You don't have to worry about the slides. You can just show us your desktop or just talk a little bit. Mm-hmm. Don't let the presentation format intimidate you. It's really just hearing about what you're working on and how you're trying to deal with content and development, management, really any aspect of it. We'd be very interested in getting you to make a presentation. And I'm sure everybody else would be quite interested too, because they're struggling with the same things or doing the same things, but maybe in a different way. So if that would be a nice possible, if you're interested, let us know, and we can schedule next month. Next month I think will be that's June, and I guess we should have a look at when we might possibly do it in June, while we're giving people a chance to contemplate their willingness to jump on or jump into it. The 17th or the 24th, I guess, would be the options, Bob.
Yeah, I would, I would say going back to the third week, because the fourth week, when you get into around the 26th of June, I know I have kids, and that they're going to be getting out of school that Friday, so that might be a tough one for some people, me included.
Yeah, the 17th looks okay to me, so I guess we'll shoot for that. And see. Rob, do you have now everybody that's been on the call today? We have their email addresses, right? So maybe we could send an email to everyone and just give them a chance to respond with whether they'd be willing to share any aspect of their work with the group on next month's or the following month's call.
Certainly.
Yep. And just one last question. I did want to field. Are the assemblies that I talked of an ARCAT item or the new Revit 2012 assemblies? No, these are an ARCAT item. We have literally 20,000 assemblies that were custom created that are in RVT files. That we create a warehouse file for each manufacturer, so you can go into an RVT file and copy and paste from one project to the other, and it carries all of the information with it.
Oh, good. Well, it looks like we did get, at least that Beth did sort of respond to your challenge, Bob, and she's even pointed out she's got a presentation coming up at a regional conference, so maybe she could just make that presentation for us. It looks like it's on a great topic.
Yeah, bringing that topic back for July would be great.
Yeah, we're probably running out of time to do a poll, but maybe we can send an email to everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Sure.
Yeah, so we'll shoot for the 17th. We'll send out an email right away and see if anybody can do that, or else I guess we'll cobble something together, Bob.
Yep, and I think Mark Kalin has someone who might be interested in coming in. I don't know whether that was the June meeting or not, but I'm going to look into that next week after the long weekend and reach out to him and see if we have an availability for that.
Rob, maybe we can go ahead and just send the invitation with the date, and then just a general topic on building information content or something, and we can then send a reply with the exact topic so we can get it on people's calendars. Since we've been a little late pinning our final speakers down and getting our invitations out.
That's not a bad idea. One thing, I think Craig Mount just wrote this in. He's suggesting using a doodle poll also.
I think that's
for a couple of things.
Yeah, you can do that. That's good for dates, but
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think we'll commit to the 17th. So. Well, great. Well, Bob, let me thank you, since you're the leader as well, for this fine, interesting presentation and sharing the work that you're doing and your experience with building content. It's really helpful to see how you've been pulling things together, what you're doing, and what ARCAT's up to. So thanks a lot.
You are quite welcome. And again, thanks everybody for getting out, for this just before the long week. I hope everybody gets to leave right now because I'm getting ready to pack myself.
All right. Well, happy Memorial Day.
Yeah. Have a beautiful day, everybody, and enjoy the long weekend. We'll see you in a month.